Welcome to part 2 of my Anakin Skywalker Character Analysis. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, then I highly encourage you to do so. I'll throw up the title card and place a link in the description to it. In today's video, I'll continue my case for Anakin as the greatest Star Wars character, looking at his role in Episode 2. So without further ado, let's get into it. Shortly after, Zam is assassinated, leaving the Jedi with more questions than answers, leading the Council to decide on sending Padme back home for her own protection, with Anakin as her bodyguard.
What about Senator Amidala? She will still need protecting.
Handle that. Your Padawan will.
For the first time, Anakin and Obi-Wan will be separated, and now Obi-Wan's work as a master will be truly tested as Anakin must operate on his own for the first time. So it's fitting that he would get words of wisdom and counsel from another father figure or mentor of his in Palpatine before embarking on his first solo mission.
And so, they've finally given you an assignment. Your patience has paid off.
Your guidance more than my patience.
This establishes the unique relationship that Palpatine and Anakin have with one another, as Anakin clearly looks at him as a mentor and seems to think highly of him more so than Obi-Wan, as seen by his commentary on him as a teacher.
Master Obi-Wan manages not to see it. In some ways, a lot of ways. I'm really ahead of him.
This scene also generally sets the tone of how comfortable Anakin is around Palpatine and overall how solid together they are, juxtaposed with Obi-Wan where there's a constant tension and bickering between the two, just never being quite on the same page. Also, the word choice of finally implies that the Jedi have not trusted him before with a solo mission, and his tone suggests that it's silly that this hasn't happened sooner, all for Anakin to unconsciously have a lack of trust in the Jedi as a whole even more.
You don't need guidance, Anakin. In time, you will learn to trust your feelings. Then you will be invincible.
Another subtle way of telling Anakin to trust himself, encouraging him to think independently of the Jedi, because he doesn't need the Jedi to tell him how to think or make the best choices for himself.
I have said it many times, you are the most gifted Jedi I have ever met.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
I see you becoming the greatest of all Jedi, Anakin, even more powerful than Master Yoda.
Palpatine plays into Anakin's ego, and as he trusts him, Anakin begins to believe the words to be accurate. If you hear something often enough, it becomes the truth, or the reality you live in. This being one of the sources of Anakin's ego, joined with the fact that he's so immensely talented, and he has the Jedi claiming him to be the chosen one. Basically, if you hear this kind of rhetoric all the time, you can believe it, which can lead to confidence, but it can also lead to arrogance. Also, it can lead to an immense pressure, as he now has to live up to everyone's expectations, being both aspects in Anakin that are explored in this film. And appropriately, just as Palpatine sings Anakin's praise, we immediately then see Obi-Wan verbalize his concerns, emphasizing the juxtaposition between Anakin's mentors.
I am concerned for my Padawan. He is not ready to be given this assignment on his own yet.
The Council is confident in its decision, Obi-Wan.
The boy has exceptional skills.
But he still has much to learn, Master. His abilities have made him, well, arrogant.
Obi-Wan expresses his concerns to the leading members of the Council. However, they are confident in their decision, and fail to take his concern more seriously as Obi-Wan knows Anakin better than anyone else. This critical outlook Obi-Wan has of Anakin shows a glimpse into why Anakin would start leaning towards listening to Palpatine over Obi-Wan, as where one mentor is seen as encouraging, the other could be seen as discouraging. This highlights the importance of balance from a teacher, as too much praise can lead to confidence, but at the cost of arrogance, and too much criticism can lead to exposing or finding one's flaws, but at the cost of building insecurity and resentment, particularly in the student towards the master.
Arrogant.
A flaw more and more common among Jedi. Too sure of themselves they are.
Also, Yoda's comments about the Jedi as a whole are represented through Anakin, as he is our eyes into what growing up in the Order as an outsider is like. If Anakin is arrogant, the Jedi Order as a whole may be some reason to blame for this.
Remember, Obi-Wan, if the prophecy is true, your apprentice is the only one who can bring the Force back into balance.
We're reminded again of the immense pressure that has been bestowed upon Obi-Wan being the master of the Chosen One, and the pressure on Anakin to be the Chosen One, as only the best is expected of him. And what's even more difficult for Obi-Wan is that he has never had any other student, so all his mistakes will show on Anakin even more so. This might be another reason why it's hard for Obi-Wan to allow Anakin to make mistakes and not to be so critical, as he feels afraid of failing him. So instinctually, he can become a bit more controlling. After visiting Palpatine, Anakin brings the news to Padme of the Council's decision, which she doesn't take lightly.
I haven't worked for a year to defeat the Military Creation Act, to not be here when its fate is decided.
Sometimes we must let go of our pride and do what is requested of us.
Anakin shows a lot of maturity in this moment, as he understands more than anyone the situation that Padme is in, as he speaks from experience. There are countless times that either his master or the council would have different plans for him than what he desired, or went about things in a way he completely disagreed with. Simply, in the results, this is the first time that they've trusted him just enough to be on his own. So every other time he's been under someone else's supervision. So the way he sees it, it's like Palpatine mentioned, his patience is finally paying off. So he's hopeful that for Padme, the same will occur.
Anakin, you've grown up.
Master Obi-Wan manages not to see it.
So much for the maturity I was just talking about. But really, this is again the idea that Anakin feels underappreciated. He puts in all this hard work combined with his exceptional skills, but lacks the appreciation and validation from his master. He continuously does what is requested of him, but he never feels like others are willing to meet him halfway. Simply, there's a lack of compassion that his master is giving him. Anakin needs a father's love and care, but simply doesn't receive it from Obi-Wan, even if he is the closest thing he has to one at this point in time.
Don't get me wrong, Obi-Wan is a great mentor, as wise as Master Yoda and as powerful as Master Windu. I am truly thankful to be his apprentice.
Even though he has his frustrations with Obi-Wan, there's still a respect and care that exists. Anakin shows gratitude for him in the situation that he's in, as Obi-Wan is one of the better Jedi in every facet. But as he would go on to say, there are things that continuously eat away at Anakin like in any relationship. But unfortunately, where the struggle lies is when he tries to communicate those feelings. He doesn't feel heard. And a lack of communication can be fatally damaging to any relationship.
In some ways, a lot of ways, I'm really ahead of him.
And so the truth comes out. Anakin knows it's not right to be arrogant, but part of the fault in Obi-Wan and Anakin's pairing is that they're more brothers in relationship and skill. In the case of skill, Anakin feels like he can compete with Obi-Wan because their abilities are already comparable even at his young age. What's worse is he's beginning to believe it and have that thought reinforced because everyone around him is telling him how great he is. And obviously, when you feel like your skills are even, if not better, than your teachers, you begin to question why you're even learning from them in the first place.
I'm ready for the trials, but he feels that I'm too unpredictable. He won't let me move on. He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand. It's not fair.
Anakin also shows that he doesn't take too well to criticism, as he doesn't stop to reflect on what Obi-Wan is saying and self-evaluate his actions and his mindset to the situation. Rather than looking at Obi-Wan's words as an opportunity to grow, he sees it as another obstacle. Although to be fair, Anakin is unwilling to take the criticism well, partially because he feels like the relationship is very one-sided, not feeling inspired by his master. More so like he's always being put down, or he's never good enough, or that he's inadequate and unable to have a voice.
All mentors have a way of seeing more of our faults than we would like. It's the only way we grow.
I know.
Padme here shows Anakin an opposing mindset and how to look at the same thing but with a glass half full mentality. The feedback from his master may hurt to hear, but it comes from a place of care, as it's the only way we can truly improve. As sometimes we need a fresh set of eyes to tell us what we need to hear, not what we want. Which is why these words hurt so much from Anakin's perspective, as he sees Obi-Wan as family, so he feels betrayed when he hears this, rather than seeing him as a mentor.
Anakin, don't try to grow up too fast.
Anakin is someone who must always be in motion, always looking to the future and for adventure. But he does so at the expense of the moment. Sometimes we're so hyper-focused on obtaining our goals that we forget to enjoy the process and the journey we took to get there, as that's the part that we look fondly on when we achieve what we sought after in the first place. So Padme reminds him to enjoy it and not be afraid to continue being a kid at heart, as that's the version of him that would be most excited and jumping for joy at the fact that he's living out his dream of being a Jedi. 9-year-old him wouldn't concern himself with all these other negative thoughts.
But I am grown up. You said it yourself.
Please don't look at me like that.
Why not?
It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Anakin can't help but not so subtly hint at his feelings towards Padme, which would be a main theme of the film, as Anakin has shown that there's already much conflict with his master, his mother, and now he wants to embark on something forbidden with Padme, emphasizing that his most healthy relationship is actually with Palpatine. Ironically enough, this moment also shows again that Anakin is quite a rebel, willing to risk it all. But Padme is definitely the more cautious and level-headed one in the relationship, as she can look a few steps forward and see the problems that could arise from it. And speaking of foreseeing problems, Obi-Wan does his best to prevent any from occurring by laying down the law right before seeing his apprentice off.
Anakin, don't do anything without first consulting either myself or the Council.
Yes, Master.
Anakin doesn't seem motivated to do this at all, and by Obi-Wan's tone, he's being quite strict. While he needs to make it clear to Anakin that his actions are important, it would go a long way to show more faith in him that he can handle his first mission on his own. In order to gain trust, you must be willing to show it in the first place.
I do hope he doesn't try anything foolish.
This epitomizes how Obi-Wan feels about Anakin being on his own, as it's a concern from every parent or mentor to let their kids or students off into the world, hoping that they've taught them enough.
I'd be more concerned about her doing something than him.
Okay, that's not reassuring either, as they now have 2 loose cannons working together on this mission.
Suddenly I'm afraid.
This is my first assignment on my own. I am too. Don't worry, we have our 2 with us.
Anakin would truly be put to the test, and his fears being one of them, not only about this mission, but with the dreams of his mother persisting. And I know it's a joke, but having R2 should be comforting. Like he's really always saving them and not getting enough credit for it. And so, their journey begins, and it's in their conversations that they would gain a better understanding of each other, as they both open up and be a bit more vulnerable about the respective lives they lead.
It must be difficult having sworn your love to the Jedi, not being able to visit the places you like or do the things you like.
Or be with the people that I love.
Clearly, he's mostly talking about Padme here, but he's also referring to his mother, as that's the thing that's ailed his dreams and turned them into nightmares, as he's not seen her since he left, and his last promise to her was to come back to rescue her. This also just emphasizes the difficulty of being a Jedi, as they make major sacrifices to their own lives for the betterment of others. Some may believe that they should be able to enjoy the peace that they fight for, but being a guardian of peace and justice doesn't always lend itself to living a normal life, one where you can settle down and be with your family and those closest to you.
Attachment is forbidden. Possession is forbidden. Compassion, which I would define as unconditional love, is central to a Jedi's life. So you might say that we are encouraged to love.
While this might seem like Anakin just trying to find a loophole in the system to justify having a love for Padme, it really also shows his wisdom beyond his years, as he managed to crack the code that is the Jedi philosophy. The idea of compassion can only truly be found through love, but the Jedi of the Republic era seem to be more dogmatic and uncompassionate than ever. Ironically, they've encouraged him to think in the opposite way, but Anakin's thought process would be the very reason he brings balance to the Force and why his son is able to save him in his final moments.
You've changed so much.
You haven't changed a bit. You're exactly the way I remember you in my dreams.
To say that Anakin falls in love hard and fast would be an understatement, as it can be a lot for others to handle as he receives silence from Padme. It again shows the amount of passion that Anakin puts into anything he does and the people he cares about. It's hard for him to have neutral or indifferent feelings towards others. It's normally either extreme love or extreme hatred.
The people you serve thought you did a good job. I heard they even tried to amend the Constitution so you could stay in office.
I was relieved when my 2 terms were up.
The difference between Padme and Anakin in politics. Anakin is willing to bend the rules if the right person is in power, and Padme believes that no one is above the principles of the established republic. Anakin also would have loved to be in that position that Padme was in, but Padme herself didn't want that kind of power and pressure forever.
But when the Queen asked me to serve as senator, I couldn't refuse her.
I agree with her. I think the Republic needs you. I'm glad that you chose to serve.
Anakin also has an immense amount of respect for Padme for what she does. He admires that not only is she passionate about what she does, but the fact that she is making a positive impact on the galaxy. He's not typically crazy about politicians, but she is one that he believes in, just as her peers do.
What is your suggestion, Master Jedi?
Oh, Anakin's not a Jedi yet. He's still a Padawan learner.
Oof, that's gotta hurt. It's almost as bad as being on the council and not having the rank of master.
What?
But for real, that's a low blow. Come on, Padme.
But I was thinking...
Hold on a minute.
Excuse me. I was thinking I would stay in the Lake Country.
Excuse me. I'm in charge of security here, milady.
And this is my home. I know it very well. That is why we're here.
Sorry, milady.
Here we see how Anakin's ego can get the best of him, as he's quick to interrupt Padme to assert being the Alpha, but gets shut down immediately, needing to understand that Padme has a point, that he should defer to her as he has an immense amount of knowledge on her own home. Although to be fair, that was basically his one job and she stole that from him. Overall, this being one of the many times that Anakin would act a bit more impulsively and talk back to the person really in charge. We saw it with Obi-Wan early in the film and now Padme. Anakin takes it in stride, but it would be just another example of when he's been shut down by others after trying to have his voice heard. And it's when the two would have some time to be alone together by the lake that Anakin would do just that, having his voice heard and expressing how he feels in his own unique way.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
While this could be taken as arbitrary complaining or questionable game, it really tells the deeper story of how Anakin feels about his upbringing, as sand, as much as anything else, represents his home planet, especially following Padme's story about the fond memories of the place that they're in. Her upbringing in life gives her a more optimistic view on it, having been born of a higher class and living on Naboo, compared to Anakin, born a slave on Tatooine. Sand is the very thing that reminds him of all the negative things that happened to him growing up. It reminds him of the injustice in the galaxy, and it reminds him of being lonely. Not only separated from his mother, but like the desolate world he lived on, both in its sandy dunes and location in the Outer Rim, but lonely in the aspect that he feels like others don't understand him because of it. He's always surrounded by others who were in a more fortunate situation than he was, and they can't relate to him for it. Hence why it seems like outside of Obi-Wan, there aren't many other people that Anakin really spends time with. He felt like Tatooine was a place where potential for a future was a rarity. Sand is a reminder that some memories simply become scars, and it shaped him into who he is.
Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
This validating the idea that other worlds or other scenarios that he could have lived in would have given him a better life growing up. He may have ended up more like Padme and have been more optimistic and idealistic about the galaxy if he was exposed to the good at a young age, besides from just his mother. Plus, this is also Anakin simply shooting a shot. Anakin's instincts kick in, and he does what he's probably wanted to do for over a decade, and kisses Padme now that he has a moment where it's just them.
I shouldn't have done that.
I'm sorry.
But she pulls away right after, realizing that there would be consequences to that action, as it wasn't simply a kiss, but one out of love that is deemed forbidden by their society, and at a time that both their external and internal conflict is at its highest in both of their lives.
You gonna use one of your Jedi mind tricks on me?
They only work on the weak-minded.
This just reinforcing the respect that Anakin has for Padme, as she's far from being weak-minded.
He's a few years older than I. Very cute. Dark curly hair, dreamy eyes.
Alright, I get the picture.
Anakin's jealous side is just really funny, and emphasizes his youthful nature as he gets jealous in a similar way that any kid would when talking to a person that they have strong feelings for.
Maybe he was the smart one.
You really don't like politicians, do you?
I like 2 or 3, but I'm not really sure about one of them.
Anakin is of course teasing her, but there is truth to what he's saying, as generally speaking, he's not a fan of politicians, as when it comes to results, they don't get things done, but he does believe in a few, because he believes in them as people, namely Padme and Palpatine.
I don't think the system works.
How would you have it work?
We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem, agree what's in the best interest of all the people, and then do it.
Again, Anakin is a man of action. He needs to see results to believe in the system. If not, it must be changed. Also, this conversation generally shows part of why Anakin enjoys Padme's company, as she's easy to talk to because she asks him what he thinks and allows him to express himself, even if she disagrees with him, not making him feel like his opinion is automatically invalid if it's different than hers.
That's exactly what we do. The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
By whom? Who's gonna make them?
I don't know. Someone.
You?
Of course not me.
But someone.
Someone wise.
Anakin believes in people to a fault. He truly likes to think there's a person out there with the truly good intentions that he always has, and the wisdom to know if they're always making the right choice. He likes to think that that kind of person truly exists, as he feels like he's seen shades of it in Palpatine. But as stated, he believes in people to a fault, being blind to their true intentions, namely Palpatine. Even when joking about a dictatorship, he shows shades of how he actually feels, believing that order trumps freedom in order to gain peace, severely limiting the mistakes of the people and determining what's best for them. Although, even having the freedom to make a mistake can be worth fighting for, as when he describes someone wise, he's probably thinking of Palpatine.
Sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship to me.
Well, if it works.
Of course, Anakin is playing tongue-in-cheek here, but there is truth to everything. Ironically, all this talk is simply foreshadowing what the rule of the Empire would be, as someone wise would decide what was in the best interest of the people, and Anakin would be the one to make the people agree, acting as the ultimate enforcer in the age of the Empire, seen as the symbol of fear to rule the galaxy and the shadow that would attempt to extinguish any sign of rebellion.
You're making fun of me.
No, I'd be much too frightened to tease a senator.
This trip overall, especially this scene here, shows Anakin at one of his happiest in the film, as simply being with Padme allows him to be himself, joking around without being reprimanded for practicing his wit too much, and be able to express his opinion in a judgment-free zone.
If Master Obi-Wan caught me doing this, he'd be very grumpy.
Even as good as things may be with Padme, he can't help but think of his master and what he would say, always thinking of the negative in the back of his mind as he can hear his voice as clear as day. This emphasizing the difference of how he feels when he's around Padme and around Obi-Wan.
From the moment I met you, all those years ago, not a day has gone by when I haven't thought of you. And now that I'm with you again, I'm in agony. I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me. My heart is beating, hoping that that kiss will not become a scar. You are in my very soul, tormenting me.
Truly, Anakin Shakespeare. Like mentioned before, Anakin's feelings for others are always strong. In the matters of love, they are no different. Just like how he doesn't know how to give minimal effort to anything, the same applies here. He's fallen hard for Padme over these years, and now that he's at the closest he's ever been with her to start a relationship, he knows that he has to give it a try. Anakin is always one to seize the opportunity, even if in this case it can make others uncomfortable. He knows this is something that he must do and a conversation that he must have, as every instinct of him is telling him to, as he's in mental, emotional, and physical pain leading up to this moment. Anakin feels what many others do in this situation. As for him, being close isn't good enough. He wants the whole package and romanticized idea of love, even if it's everything that the world or galaxy believes is right for him.
What can I do? I will do anything that you ask. If you're suffering as much as I am, please tell me.
Anakin just wants closure on this. He can't continue in limbo, as it would mean that he would allow his feelings for her to be unresolved. So he needs answers on if she's okay with him having these feelings, and more importantly, if she reciprocates them for him.
I can't. We can't. It's just not possible.
Anything is possible, Padme. Listen to me.
She's clearly the logical thinker in the relationship, where Anakin bases his actions on emotion and feeling, as Qui-Gon once did. And here, his emotions are causing him to dictate his actions. Anakin's optimism and hopeless romantic ways also lend themselves to blinding him to seeing the bigger picture.
No, you listen. We live in a real world. Come back to it. You're studying to become a Jedi. I'm a senator. If you follow your thoughts through to conclusion, it'll take us to a place we cannot go, regardless of the way we feel about each other.
Padme, from personality, upbringing, and age, is more mature than Anakin when it comes to these things, understanding that we can't always get what we want, and not everything we want is always good for you. Sometimes you need to care about yourself enough to say no to your impulses and temptation, as it could destroy everything you've worked for, along with those around you that you care about. Similar to his own quote about letting go of your pride, he understands what the right thing is, but is willing to throw it all out the window for love. A lot of times this can be seen as a good thing, as it's a testament to how much you love someone, or being how much you're willing to sacrifice. But in this case, it can be a recipe for disaster to your livelihood, career, mental state, and family and loved ones. It also shows that if Anakin is willing to risk it all on the chance at love, one can only imagine what lengths he would go to maintain it and keep it alive.
Then you do feel something.
Anakin really forgot everything she said before that statement. All Anakin needs is a sliver of a chance, as through and through, he believes that if there's a will, there's a way.
I will not let you give up your future for me.
You are asking me to be rational. That is something I know I cannot do.
Well, at least he's self-aware. He knows the consequences and is still willing to throw it all away, which is a scary thing to think about. But it's what makes him who he is, as he's a risk-taker at heart. And Padme would need a bit more convincing, as right now, she's unwilling to risk her career or his.
Believe me, I wish that I could just wish away my feelings, but I can't.
I will not give in to this.
In terms of love, they're representing the unstoppable force and the immovable object. Anakin understands that his feelings are very real to him, so to push them to the side is not the answer, especially after he's been told to do the same with his mother after all these years. So he already knows that the same way he can't stop caring for his mother, the same will be with Padme.
Well, you know, it wouldn't have to be that way. We could keep it a secret.
We'd be living a lie, one we couldn't keep even if we wanted to. I couldn't do that. Could you, Anakin? Could you live like that?
No, you're right. It would destroy us.
This being something that they both seem destined to do, with him hiding his attachment to his mother and her always living and hiding with a decoy, never being able to openly be herself at all times. They both agree that it would be for the best for them to not pursue anything, but fate would say otherwise. And the look on Anakin's face shows that while their conversation on the topic may be over, his feelings for her are not. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I had a ton of fun making this video, so if you enjoyed it too, then I highly suggest liking the video. And if you want to see more like it, then definitely hit subscribe. And if you want to be notified when part 3 comes out, then hit the bell for notifications, or consider checking out my Patreon, where I'll be uploading videos there significantly sooner than on YouTube. Part 3 should be available there as I speak, and the same will apply to the next parts when they come out. And on that note, I want to give a shout out to my patrons. Your support means everything to me. And finally, let me know in the comments which Star Wars character has gone through the greatest challenges and why. And who knows, they might be in the next one. Until next time, remember, sometimes we must let go of our pride and do what is requested of us.